Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Naruto sat and watched as the girls went through their chakra training exercises. He had already gotten a new shield today by accident. The butterfly shield. He watched as a butterfly landed on the jewel and was absorbed. He was alerted to a new shield, the butterfly shield. He sighed and worried that the shield was going weird on him and was going to absorb just about anything. Then a thought hit him. What if I use cutting of their hair and my hair on the shield? Heck, the girls do need to have their hair cut. It is getting in the way of their eyesight and might get in their way, he pondered. He switched to the medical research shield and began to pick up herbs. He knew that they had about a week and a half left before the wave. The group level was about level 20, with Naruto and Millie trailing behind. Naruto had also informed Millie about the false charges against him. She began to laugh at the charges after how he had treated her on the first day. She even said that she would welcome him taking her eventually. That caused Naruto to blush. His senses blared and he jumped up. A large porcupine burst through the bushes near where he had just been. He changed shields to the light metal shield. He threw a special shuriken back towards the girls. It had a whistle on it. The girls turned quickly and headed towards Naruto. Blocked the porcupine and deflected it to the side. It growled at him. He jumped back only a few meters, but still had its attention. Hey, Spiky, nice try. Come and get me, he exclaimed. It charged only to have several kunai impact into each side of it. Sylvie appeared behind it and slashed with her sword. It screamed in anguish and died. Raphtalia looked around and asked, "Are there any more?" Naruto shifted his shield to the dog shield and concentrated. He replied, "No, it appears that it was alone. Let's butcher this one and start our day of leveling." He pulled a few spines and fed them to the shield and got the animal needle shield. He chuckled and said, "An attack bonus shield." The girls celebrated. They also sealed the meat and bones into a scroll for later use. Sylvie hugged Naruto and said, "Finally, now you can start to get on the front lines with us. Instead of using your clones so much." She blushed and broke the hug and said, "We need to get stronger girls for Naruto-koi." Raphtalia said, "Yes, for Naruto-kun." Millie said, "For Naruto-sama." Several hours later the group was up against a bear. Naruto said, "Sylvie, Raphtalia, keep the front, but don't let it hit you. Millie, hit it with a fire spell. As shield hero, the source of thy power, decipher the laws of nature, defend my target fast guard." Sylvie began to glow. Naruto then exclaimed again, "As shield hero, the source of thy power, decipher the laws of nature, defend my target fast guard." Raphtalia began to glow. He then said, "Go girls. Millie, cover then with flame arrows." Millie replied, "Yes, master. As a source of my power, I order thee, decipher the laws of nature and burn my target like a burning flame, first flame arrow." She held her hands forward and pointed, then between her companions and a flaming arrow formed. It then shot forward and hit the bear in the chest. The bear roared in pain and looked directly at Millie, but then was struck by Raphtalia and then Sylvie in succession. The bear appeared confused as to which target to attack. Naruto then charged full speed at the bear with the light metal shield equipped. He ran into the bear with such force that the bear flew back several meters. Naruto then did several hand signs and called out, "Fire style, fireball jutsu." It hit the bear directly in the face. The bear was blinded. Sylvie came in and swung up with her sword and cut the bear's throat. There was a gurgle and then the bear fell dead. Naruto used the rope shield and tied up the bear to make sure it was dead. Raphtalia then plunged her sword into the bear's chest and made doubly sure, by piercing its heart. Experience points racked up all around. Raphtalia quickly began to field dress the bear and seal the kill. Sylvia cleaned the weapons and Millie collected the clothes from Sylvie and Raphtalia. At this point, Naruto had become mostly desensitized to seeing the girls in various states of undress. If they weren't totally naked, he made sure that he wouldn't be looking at them for any particular reason at those times. Not that they would have minded. Each wanted his attention for their own reason. Especially Sylvie. The group set up camp and finished dinner and was working on reading lessons. Naruto had finished his lessons on healing and had learned one support magic spell one of his clones had seen done. Sylvie and Millie had finished the book on fire spells and now needed second-level fire spells. They also wanted to know what Raphtalia's magic ability was so that they could get her training started. The group took a dip in the stream together and Naruto had to say that he was slightly jealous. They were now all older than him, with only Sylvie not really looking that much older. Sylvie had a lithe body with a small chest. He estimated that they all were about 17 and were not afraid to show him their bodies. Raphtalia had grown from a child to a nice-figured young woman with a medium chest, as did Millie. Millie was no longer was skin and bones. She had gained some fat and some muscle. The fat was in the right places and so she no longer looked emaciated. A beautiful woman had shone through. Naruto said, "You look a lot better now, Millie." Millie blushed and replied, "You really think so?" Naruto replied, "Yes. You look much healthier. You looked starved like before. Now you look like a healthy woman." She stood and posed. She then asked, "Do you like what you see?" Naruto-sama. Naruto blushed and replied, "What man wouldn't? I also know that we can't do that because we have work to do." Sylvie giggled and said, "We will have to wait for that, Millie." Naruto Koi is still a little shy and while he is over his crush of she, who shall not be named. We all know what we must do. There is work that must be done. I know that I would love to be Naruto Koi's wife, but we need to make sure that we get these waves taken care of and see that what happened to Raphtalia-chan's village doesn't happen to another village. I know the urge is great, but we must fight it and persevere. Raphtalia smiled and said, "Yes. Naruto-kun is the shield hero and if we can make it to the area of Idle Rabier, we might be able to rescue some of my friends or some of the people in the castle." Naruto leaned back in the warm water. He and a couple of clones had cleaned out an area in the stream. They then filled it with water, allowed the water to settle, and then heated it with fire jutsu. After some more idle conversation and some teasing, the group dried off, got dressed, and went to bed. Naruto left several clones with the girls that morning after breakfast. He explained, "I have something to do. I'll be gone most of the day and should be back tonight. I might be late, so be gentle on the clones." He then jumped off in a northern direction. After a few hours, he was met by Jiraiya. He then said, "Hey pervy sage." Jiraiya asked, "What are you doing away from the girls?" Naruto sighed and explained, "I have to save the slaves that are being held by Idle Rabier. His castle is nearby." Jiraiya smiled and said, "Good. I was about to pay that man a visit. I want you to make him vanish. After what I learned about him from some of the Queen's people, I was asked if we could eliminate him and have it look like a rival, an accident, or a natural death. It is your choice on how to do it. Just do it correctly. We are not to be either seen or blamed for his death." Naruto sighed and said, "So an assassination mission? I think I have just the item for it." He pulled out a vial from his pouch. Jiraiya nodded and replied, "Like I said, the method is up to you. Just make sure that you are not found out. That is the key to success. You pass or fail by whether you are found out. I will be watching. Also, getting the slaves out will be an added to your trial. This will be your Chunin exam." Naruto nodded and suddenly did a henge, changing into an average-looking woman. He changed his shield into his doctor shield. She wore flowing pants and a ruffled blouse. Her hair was brown as were her eyes. Her build was medium. She had no distinguishing characteristics. Naruto looked at Jiraiya and asked with a wink, "Do I look good, Jiraiya-sama?" Jiraiya chuckled and replied, "Perfect cover for an assassin. Good luck." Naruto continued through the trees and then landed a little ways from the castle. She then walked into the castle. The guards didn't give her even a second glance. Naruto made his way up to the keep and into the main courtyard. He discreetly made a couple of clones that looked like a couple of random guards and sent them down what looked like a dungeon entrance. The main Naruto slipped into the main manor and kept watch on guards and the comings and goings of each person. He eventually figured out who idol Rabier was. He changed into a maid and was able to spike his tea with a slow-acting poison from the kitchen. He made sure to wipe the cup after Rabier drank the tea. He left the main building and changed himself into a guard. He then made his way to the dungeon and found a girl barely alive. He had his clones watch for other guards. He undid his henge and ran a diagnostic jutsu on the girl. She was suffering from a nearly fatal case of tuberculosis. Naruto immediately gave her a nutrition pill and cast a spell quietly. As shield hero, the source of thy power, decipher the laws of nature, heal my target first heal. He then used potion amplification and gave her a healing potion. Her eyes opened and she looked up and asked weakly, "Are you the shield hero?" Naruto smiled and replied, "Yes, I am." She asked, "Will you marry me?" He chuckled and replied, "You're a little young, but if you grow some, we can talk about it." She looked saddened and said, "I'm not long for this world." Naruto grimaced and said, "If you want to marry me, then you have to fight harder than that. I can heal you. I already healed Raftalia." This seemed to perk up the pink-haired weasel girl. She nodded, as he gave her another potion. A clone herded another 5 kids into the cell. He began to heal all of them. Their faces were amazed when he said, "Shield hero," in his spells. Naruto said quietly, "Please keep it down. I will get you out of here, but I need to figure out how to do that and get you past the guards without them seeing or hearing you." He finished healing them and said, "We'll make our break around the middle of the night when the guards are at their weakest. I have a couple of clones working on their shifts and such." The children headed back to their cells with a clone each of whom blended into the shadows. Naruto then told the girl he had saved from death's door, "When the guard comes to check you, I want you to barely breathe and make sure it is raspy and cough lightly, but make it sound like you are about to die." The girl nodded and replied, "Yes, my future husband. My name is Rifana." Naruto nodded. Rifana laid down in the position that Naruto had found her in and he hid in the shadows. When the guard came to check on her, she made the shallow breaths like Naruto had told her to. The guard shook his head and said, "This one is about to perish. Maybe we should just put her out of her misery." The other guard shook his head and exclaimed, "No way. Rabier-sama would kill us for letting a demi get some relief. Let her die. We can call our rounds done and head back. It looks like it will be a quiet night tonight." The first guard nodded his head as he exited the cell and said, "I really hate this place. I really want to get out of here." The pair left the dungeon. Naruto and his clones collect the slaves again and say, "For us to get out of here, I need each of you to put a drop of blood on one of these pieces of paper and then leave them in your cells. It will leave an illusion of yourselves for about a week's time and then the illusion will quit in 7 nights." Each child pricked their finger and took a piece of paper. They left with a clone. Naruto pricked Rifana's finger and touched it to the paper. He then said, "Fuin Jutsu, hide the living with illusionary death seal." He picked her up and created a clone who left the paper where she had been laying. He smiled and waited for the others to return. With the help of the clones, the group quietly made their way to the top of the stairs. The solo clone waved the first 2 clone slave groups to the shadows of the courtyard before a guard made his rounds. The next 2 made their way to the shadows, like the first pair, and were hidden from the passing guard. Naruto, Rifana, solo clone, and the last pair made their way to the shadows. They waited for the guards to make their rounds and then the group jumped up to the top of the building and quickly down the other side. As Naruto looked down and noticed the slave crest on Rifana turn to smoke and wisp away, he knew then that Rabier was dead. After clearing the curtain walls, Naruto and his clones turned up the speed and headed out to the west. He found an area where he felt Jiraiya was and landed with his clones. Jiraiya was talking with a thin man with glasses and said, "Now you understand that you must not tell anyone what you know." The man smiled and laughed lightly. He then said, "I know nothing, Jiraiya-kun. Your pupil is here, but there seems to be a lot more of him than I would have expected." Jiraiya chuckled and turned around. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "Were you seen? And how did you get out with them?" Naruto replied, "I used an illusionary death seal." Jiraiya chuckled and said, "Good call." He turned to the man in front of him and said, "This is Van Reichnot. He will hide those demi-humans and see to their safety. You can come back for them if you want to later. We have about a week before the wave hits. I see that you've gotten them up to around level 30 and 25. Like yourself. The old coot said I'm a fire and earth type. You got any books on those types of magic?" Naruto nodded and replied, "Got a first level fire magic book and you can have it. Both Millie and Sylvie have finished it. Need to get another book for illusion for Millie and wind for Sylvie. I also need a level 2 healing and a support book for me. I do know one support spell, but that is all. One of my clones saw it from someone else and I copied it and it worked after several attempts. I also have those fire and water jutsu down." Reichnot smiled and said, "You seem very competent, Naruto-kun. I will make sure to take very good care of these refugees. It looks like this one especially doesn't want you to go." He smiles warmly at Rifana snuggling into Naruto's chest. Naruto sighs and replied, "She asked me to marry her and I don't know how to respond." Reichnot smiled and gently took the girl from Naruto. He then said, "After the wave, you can collect her and any of the others that wish to join your party. She will grow up fast and you can decide when she grows up." Naruto sighed and asked, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Jiraiya laughed and replied, "You have the devil's luck. You must be collecting a harem." Naruto scowled and said, "I need you to work with me on lightning and wind." Jiraiya nodded, but said, "A week isn't enough to learn either wind or lightning. I will also help you in the wave though. So, I will accompany you back to the castle and we will requip." He then patted Naruto on the back and said, "Good job, Chunin Uzumaki." Naruto smiled and nodded. Naruto handed Rifana to Reichnot. The pair then headed back to the camp where the girls were and left the refugees and the clones guards with Reichnot. Naruto and Jiraiya began the trek to the camp with the girls. Naruto asked, "So what does the queen have to say?" Jiraiya sighed and replied, "She is quite angry with her husband the king. He was not supposed to be in charge, and he especially was not supposed to summon all of the heroes. They were supposed to be summoned in a country one by one. You might have been summoned in either Shieldfrieden or Siltvelt. Now she has to play damage control and avert a war with other nations. I would also note that slavery is common in this kingdom, and the nobles love it especially with demi-humans. Except those like Reichnot?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded and replied, "Yes, he and the former noble from Sayad region. His daughter is missing too." Naruto took a thinking pose with his hand on his chin while the pair were running quickly along. He then said, "I may have a line on her. I think she may be a prisoner in the castle dungeon in the capital." Jiraiya exclaimed, "We need to save her." Naruto smiled and said, "I plan to. Even if it gets the king mad." He chuckled. Jiraiya shook his head and sighed. "You're just a troublemaker," Jiraiya said with a chuckle. The pair continued to talk and laugh as they headed back to the camp. They entered the camp to find Sylvie on guard duty. She quickly ran and hugged Naruto. He chuckled and blushed. He then asked, "Did you miss me?" Sylvie smiled and kissed him on the cheek. She then replied, "Of course, we missed you. Especially me, Naruto Koi. Did something exciting happen?" The trio sat down by the fire and Naruto replied, "I've been promoted and have something to tell Raftalia when she gets up. I won't spill the beans until then. We will be heading back to the capital tomorrow. It should take a couple days and we will have a week to prepare." Sylvie snuggled close to Naruto. She noticed that he only became slightly uncomfortable with the affection from her. She smiled at this. Jiraiya smiled at the pair. He then said, "I'll take a watch and let you guys sleep." Naruto said, "Thanks, Erosenin." The pair got up and walked over to the other two girls. Naruto laid down and the girls curled up to Naruto. Sylvie laid down next to Naruto and curled up to his other side and quickly fell asleep. The group woke up and quickly got ready for the day. Naruto fixed breakfast. As he served breakfast, Naruto explained, Raftalia, I have something to tell you. This got the girl's attention. He continued, last night I went on a mission. I was able to save a friend of yours, Rifana. This caused her to tear up and smile widely. He continued, I also found 5 others in the dungeon and was able to free them also. Now, none of you must ever tell anyone about what I'm about to tell you. He watched each of the girls nod before he continued, I ended Idol Rabier. Meaning I killed him, but if you're asked, I was here with you leveling up. Do you understand? He looked at each and they all nodded in turn. He then smiled. While killing another person isn't something to be proud of, it isn't the first time I've done it. Also, this was a mission and got me a commendation in my village. I'm now a Chunin, the next level in my shinobi career. Next will be my Junin test. Jiraiya then spoke up. Given his showing in the invasion of our village nearly 3 years ago, his capture of rogue shinobi, Sasuke Uchiha, his training, with me and here on this planet, and this last mission. He has proven that he is ready to become Chunin in both my opinion and the 5th Hokage's opinion. We will give you a vest later if you want it. Until then we will keep that information secret. Now let's go through the list of levels. Raftalia, 31, Sylvie 32, Millie, 25, Naruto, 21, and myself, 28. Only Raftalia and myself don't have spells, but I have elemental jutsu. Have you girls mastered the basic 3 jutsu? All 3 girls answer at the same time, yes sir. He then handed out paper to each and said, push a little chakra into the paper. This will be for training after the wave since I expect none of you to perish in the wave. Naruto has pushed you into teamwork and how to work together. Now show me your chakra affinities. Raftalia pushed chakra into the paper and it split in half. Jiraiya said, wind. Sylvie pushed chakra into the paper and it became soaked. He said, water. Millie pushed chakra into the paper and it began to turn into ash. Jiraiya said, fire. This is a good mix of elements. With mine fire, wind, earth, water, yin and yang. Naruto ed his head and asked, yin and yang chakra. Jiraiya replied, eat while I explain. Yin is creation chakra. I could create something. Say I have no water and I want to use a water jutsu. I would create it with my chakra using yin release. If I want to give life or energy to an object or a jutsu, that would be yang. I would say that making the Kyuubi would have been both a yin and yang feat by the Sage of 6 Paths. Naruto nodded his head, while the girls wore a look of confusion. Naruto replied, I get it, not really. Jiraiya chuckled and replied, you'll understand more in your sage training, but that will be after the wave. So will be the elemental training for the girls. Now finish up breakfast. We have a week until the wave and I want you guys to get supplies and the extra goods sold off. We also want you to get check up on the other heroes. You will also need to work on some new spells. Since we're going to buy some more books. I just be reading the one you have on fire magic and Millie will be training me on it on the way. Millie got a look on her face and said, so the student becomes the master. Jiraiya chuckles and replies, in this case, yes. You are more versed in magic and I need to learn. We need to learn about Raftalia and get her trained up on magic. The girls in unison exclaim, yes sir. Naruto has already broken down the tent and folded up the sleeping bags. The girls have noticed that he is already working and begin to clean the dishes and finish cleaning camp. It takes the better part of the day to get to the capital. Naruto uses henge to change into a nondescript person and Jiraiya follows behind at a distance. The girls act quiet around Naruto as they enter the castle wall, so as to not attract attention. They find several merchants and sell off their wares. Naruto transforms into himself and enters the apothecary. He sells some of his herbs and medicines. Naruto asks, so what will sell better? The herbs or the finished medicines? The apothecary replies, because of the waves, the medicines will sell better. I will buy them off of you. Since Naruto had gotten along well with this man before, he knew that he would be treated fairly and left with some new instruments and more money than he expected. He did save some for his party, to be sure. The next stop was to the witch's magic shop. She was still happy to see Naruto and his party as before. They tested Raphtalia. Witch said, "Dearie, you're half raccoon, it looks like you are both light and dark magic user. I would specialize in illusion magic, because of your heritage. As for the books, it will be 2 gold pieces." Naruto raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why so little for 3 books and 2 of them are second level?" He put the coins on the counter and put the books into his backpack. She blushed and replied, "You are friends with that handsome Jiraiya, aren't you?" Naruto nodded and said, "Yeah, but what does that have to do with it?" She smiled and said, "I knew that was why he asked all those questions and is in my store right now." Jiraiya appeared in a corner and said, "Listen, witch." She blushed and said, "You say the kindest things, Jiraiya-kun." Jiraiya sighed and asked, "What do you want from me?" She replied, "I would like you to take me out on a date." Jiraiya looked at Naruto and asked, "You hold the purse strings?" Naruto pulled out several silver coins and tossed them to Jiraiya and said, "Have a good time." He then chuckled and said, "Don't do anything I wouldn't." Jiraiya scowled and said, "I'm older than you. I'm an adult and so is she." Naruto looked at the shopkeeper and asked, "Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" She smiled and replied, "If he's a pervert then hopefully, yes. If not, then at least a pleasant night with a gentleman." Naruto shook his head and Sylvie said as the 4 kids left the shop, "Have fun. We're going to get a room at the inn." Jiraiya waved at them and began to talk to the shopkeeper. Naruto saw Motoyasu and his party coming back into the castle wall. He noticed that one of the girls wasn't happy and seemed to be annoyed at the group. He pulled Sylvie's arm and said, "Looks like there is trouble in paradise." She asked, "What do you mean?" He said, "The 4th girl, the blonde. She doesn't seem happy to be in the group with the spear hero. Also, watch out for the redhead. She is the one I told you about." The other girls had been listening in and Raphtalia asked, "Should we follow them?" Naruto nodded and said, "That woman is always up to no good, so that girl might be in trouble." Sylvie kissed him on the cheek and said, "My hero, but will there be enough of you to go around?" Naruto blushed at the implications. The group followed the spear hero's group and they entered a building. About 10 minutes later 3 of the girls left with the 4th tied up and dragging her along. Naruto's eyes flashed purple and his canines grew. Sylvie looked on worriedly but followed along with her master. She had a feeling that one more would be added tonight. Naruto engaged a henge and changed into what looked like a noble and said, "Wait here." The girls nodded and knew this district to be the red light. He was able to enter the building just before the women from the spear heroes group. Naruto was talking to the master of the brothel and asked to buy a girl, just as Mine and the girls from the spear hero entered. Mine said, "She is a slave and I can sell her to you for a gold coin." Naruto looked at the woman who was tied up and she looked frightened. He lifted her chin and looked into her eyes and showed an instant of sympathy. Only enough for her to catch it. She seemed to catch on and slacked. He looked her up and down and said, "She will do fine as a concubine for me. I lack the ink for doing the exchange." Mine smiled and said, "Andre, you can do it for him. Can you make sure that this woman will disappear?" Naruto nodded and replied, "She will not be seen again for a long time. So, 1 gold to you and 20 silvers for the transfer." Andre nodded and greedily rubbed his hands. He then replied, "That would be fine, sir." Naruto pricked his finger and dripped it into the dish with the ink. Andre dipped the brush and then ran it along the existing slave crest on her. She screamed through the gag. She fell to her knees and panted. Naruto handed Andre 20 silvers and gave Mine a gold coin. Mine and her friends left happily. Naruto picked the girl up bridal style and left the building. The girl had passed out. He made it to the girls and they cut the ropes. Naruto transformed back to himself. He carried his new slave back to the inn and asked the innkeeper, I would like a room with 2 beds, please. The man smiled lecherously and said, Of course, sir. That will be 1 silver and 10 copper per night. Food not included. Naruto nodded and looked at Sylvie, who said, Yes, master. We will be staying for the week. She got out 7 silver and 70 copper. The girls then bowed and Sylvie said, Thank you, sir. The innkeeper just handed a key to Sylvie. The girls surrounded Naruto as they went to the room. It was a clean room with 2 beds. Naruto set the new girl on the bed and turned to the girls. He then said, Time for haircuts for all of us. How would you like your hair to look? Sylvie replied, I would like it to be short, somewhat like yours, but a girl's style. Naruto nodded. Raphtalia replied, I want it a little shorter than it is now, but still somewhat longer than the other girls. Naruto nodded. Millie replied, I want it at the shoulders or so if you could, master. Naruto nodded. Naruto started with Raphtalia, since hers would be the quickest to do. She smiled after looking in the mirror. She asked, Do I look beautiful, Master Naruto? Naruto smiled and replied, Of course. Millie was next. She was ecstatic about her hair. She didn't even ask. She just wrapped her arms around Naruto and kissed him on the lips. Naruto smiled and said, I guess you like it. She nodded. Naruto worked on Sylvie's hair and it took quite a while. Sylvie looked at the finished job Naruto had done and said, If I reward you the way I want to, I would get in trouble with Jiraiya. So, this will have to do. She kissed him and it lasted longer than it did with Millie. She then said, Remember, I want to marry you. Naruto scratched his neck and said, Well, about that, Raphtalia's friend, Rifana also wants to marry me. She like Raphtalia as 10. Sylvie sighed and said, We will be fully grown soon, or at least have 18-year-old bodies soon. Naruto asked, But have your minds grown up enough from 10 and 11 to make those decisions? Or do you just think they have? Sylvie sighed and replied, I'm not sure. I guess we play this by ear. The girl on the bed began to wake up and her eyes went wide open. She exclaimed, Please don't sell me into slavery. Naruto chuckled and said, I just said that to confuse that bitch. She tried to screw up my life too. You're safe. We need to hide your identity. So, what is your name? The girl looked around and saw 3 girls in the room and a young blonde man. She tentatively replied, Rhino, I'm a fighter with some magic. Naruto smiled and walked over to the woman. He extended his hand and said, Welcome to the Shield Heroes party. You've got me, Naruto Uzumaki, 15, Chunin Shinobi and Shield Hero, falsely accused of rape and still a virgin. This caused Rhino to giggle. Naruto then points to Sylvie and continues the introduction, Sylvie, Bunny Warrior, Fire and Water Mage. He pointed at Raphtalia and said, Raphtalia, Raccoon Warrior, Illusionist in the making. And finally pointing at Millie, he said, And finally, Millie, Fire Mage, and Illusionist in the making. Welcome, Rhino, to the band of misfits. Our missing comrade is Jiraiya, the ultimate pervert and teacher of all things shinobi. Rhino looked at the group. They seemed competent. She looked at their levels and they all had higher levels than she did. She then asked, Am I to become your slave? Naruto paled and replied, No. I just said that to get you away from that woman. She is the one who accused me of raping her. Sylvie giggled and said, There will be no in this group for quite a while. I want to with Naruto Koi, but no, it would impede our growth. The other girls feel strongly about Master too. Rhino blushed and said, I'm sorry for assuming. Naruto chuckled and replied, It is all right, but we need to change your look. You are a beautiful woman, but the quickest way to change your look is to cut your hair. The second would be to change the color, but that would be hard. I would also not want to try to start up your chakra. It might be dangerous. Rhino looked at Naruto questioningly and asked, Chakra? Naruto smiled and replied, Chakra is like mana, but different. I can use it to make other techniques. He held up his left hand and a blue sphere appeared. He then explained, this is the Rasengan, an assassination technique. This will grind the target and destroy the target's insides. A very devastating attack. I can show you more types tomorrow, but I hate to say it, but I need to know how old you are. Rhino replied, I'm 20. Naruto smiled and said, I would have to check with Granny to see if it would work with you or if it would even be safe for you. Millie was about the dividing line for how old you could be to have your chakra activated. Do you notice the bar on the girls that is missing from your status? Rhino nodded and replied, it is a different color. Naruto nodded and replied, yes, that is chakra. Millie has the least, while Sylvie has the third most. Jiraiya has second and I have the most. This week we will work on team training with you and get ready for the wave. You will not be in the way, but we need to figure out where you will fit into the team. I figure that you will help guard Millie and I will back up Sylvie and Raftalia. We will work on large groups of balloons and then work on a large creature as a group, so we can feel out how each of us works together. I have weakened attacks. Rhino looked surprised and asked, so you girls aren't going to just root him on and not do anything? Millie giggled and replied, he's the shield hero. His defense is outstanding, but his offense is rather weak, especially compared to what it should be. So, no, we work as a team and help each other to complete the work. He may run off to do something by himself, but he will make sure that we are safe enough. We are tough, but he makes sure that we don't bite off more than we can chew. Raftalia smiled and said, he also loves us and would never endanger us if he could help it, but his job is to save the world and we're going to help him. Sylvie slipped her arm into Naruto's and said, he will save us and we will save him. So, do we color your hair, or do we cut it? Rhino sighed and replied, I guess we should do both, but what about my clothes? I need new clothes. Naruto smiled and replied, we can shop for new clothes tomorrow. We need new armor and weapons anyway. Rhino got up and hugged Naruto. She noticed him going rigid to her touch. She looked at him and saw the worry in his eyes. Sylvie replied, he isn't used to affection. It has taken a month to get him this far. He almost runs scared if we are standing naked in front of him. He is afraid we will hit him. Rhino wore a wondering look and asked, are you afraid of women? Naruto replied, women can be scary. Sylvie guided Rhino to the chair and Naruto began to cut the woman's hair. Sylvie whispered into her ear, do not hurt him. For he has loosened the slave settings. Jiraiya will not hesitate to kill you if you hurt his godson. Given time, Naruto will come to love you. If not as a lover then as a sister. Rhino began to sweat and nodded. Naruto didn't notice the conversation between the two women. He ended up giving her a wavy baby doll Heim cut. The hair framed her face, giving her a different look. It didn't detract from her beauty but was different than before. Sylvie trimmed Naruto's hair. Naruto collected up all the hair and fed it to his shield. Sylvie and Millie took the bed with Naruto that night, while Raftalia and Rhino took the other. Naruto woke first, which was a first, but he found Sylvie on top of him. He smiled at the bunny ears shading his eyes from the early rays of the sun. Her head lifted and her green eyes looked into his blue. She whispered, we could have some fun before the others wake. Naruto smirked and reached around and grabbed her fluffy tail. He replied, you would be too noisy. He gently squeezed her tail and her face turned beet red. She then moaned loudly. He smiled and said, I'm sure that you would be louder if we went further. Her beet red face nodded and she buried her head in his chest. Millie looked at him and said, she is asking for again, isn't she? Naruto replied, yep, and we all know that we can't do that yet. I can't get you girls pregnant or hurt from just before the wave. Sure, it would be fun, but it would be disastrous in the long run. He looked at Sylvie and asked, had enough yet? She shook her head and grabbed his other hand. She then slid it in her top and said, please squeeze gently. Naruto by this time had already gotten a rise from the girl, but she wanted him to feel her up. So, he obliged. She bit into his shirt and moaned loudly. After a few minutes, she gasped and Naruto looked at the girl, who seemed satisfied. He pulled his hands away from her and asked, "You really need to figure out how old you really are. I feel like I'm playing with a kid." And Sylvie kissed him passionately and then said, "I declare that I'm 18. We can wed when you reach 16. She then got up shakily from on top of Naruto. Millie giggled and said, "I really think that she is going to get you after this wave sometime and before the next one." Naruto shook his head and replied, "You may be right in that. I can't figure if it is the hormones or lust. Which would also be hormones of a different sort." Millie kissed him lightly on the lips and replied, "You're just too irresistible. Also, when did you get so smart?" Naruto blushed and pleaded, "Stop teasing me." Millie giggled and replied, "Sylvie is teasing, but serious. Me, I'm serious, but teasing. I would love to be yours, but we have too much to do." Raphtalia was wiping her eyes and said, "Did Sylvie try to get you again, Naruto-kun?" Naruto nodded and replied, "I couldn't really get too much attention from the girls in my world, but here." Raphtalia giggled and said, "They either accuse you of raping them or want to rape you." Naruto said as he got up, "I would settle for somewhere in between." Rhino got up and asked, "Girl trouble?" Naruto chuckled and replied, "Something like that. In my world girls ignored me over another guy." Rhino looked down and said, "I thought the spear hero was a great guy. He asked me out and I thought I was the luckiest girl in the world. His type always does. The company he keeps tells you more about him," Naruto explained. Rhino nodded and said, "That redhead tricked me and had someone put a slave seal on me after our adventure outside. You came along and saved me. Well, you bought me. I don't have to have with you, do I?" Sylvie returned in her adventure gear and replied, "Only if you want to. He won't force you to. It's not in his nature. He has a kind heart and while I want him, he has the willpower to keep me in line and not use the slave crest. This makes me love him even more. He and I do need to mature, but I do like to play with him and like it when he plays with me." Millie would be next in line and Raphtalia would be last. She would be either lover or sister and can't figure out where she would want to be. Raphtalia blushed as she put on her adventure gear and said, "I have time to decide. He is cool and did save all of us." Naruto had taken off his shirt and his pants. He sealed them away. Rhino watched intently and only understood that this young man was 15, when Millie said, "His body is amazing for a 15-year-old. Isn't it?" Rhino blushed and said, "I'm not sure what to say." The girls giggled and Naruto quickly dressed in a new outfit. He then said, "Sorry, I forgot you're new, and, well, we sort of know each other's bodies rather intimately." Rhino eyes went wide and asked, "What do you mean?" Raphtalia replied, "We've seen each other in the nude for the last month. He's seen us grow from 10 and 11 in mine and Sylvie's case and 14 in Millie's case." Naruto explained, "At first, it was more an accident, but the girls made it more of a thing. Especially in the last week, since they reached their 18-year-old bodies. More like they wanted to show off." He whispered the last part. Millie handed a dress to Rhino to put on and said, "Admit it, you enjoyed it." "I know we did." Naruto replied, "Most of the girls in my world would have beaten me to a pulp if I even tried to take a peek. These girls showed it off to me. On purpose. I tried to avoid it, but eventually, I decided to not fight it since it might hurt me if I said no to them." Sylvie ran a finger under his chin and asked, "So you did like it?" Naruto nodded and replied, "What guy wouldn't? I'm just glad Erosenin didn't see it." Rhino had just put on the dress given to her by Millie and a voice came from the door. "You girls are still too young for me, but this one is on the borderline," Jiraiya said. Naruto said, "This is Jiraiya, our other party member. Until we get info back from Granny Tsunade, we will not activate her chakra. I don't want to risk it." Jiraiya nodded and said, "Your call. Now we need to get some new equipment. What are our finances?" Naruto pulled out a scroll and a bag appeared. Naruto then pulled out a smaller bag. He then quickly went through both bags and replied, 8 gold, about 300 silver and 20 copper. I'll travel to the weapon shop first and then you guys follow me, Jiraiya said. Naruto then said, first we need to get an outfit for Rhino and change her hair color. Mine might recognize her without the hair change. Without chakra there is no way to change her appearance, unless we want to use a seal, but that could have drawbacks. Jiraiya took a thinking pose and said, you're right. She's a blonde, a brunette would be enough of a change. I'm off. He left the room. The group left the room and Naruto changed his appearance again. Rhino pulled the hood over her head and walked in the middle of the group. They came upon a hairdresser who did the hair coloring for 2 silvers. They then found the dress shop and the woman was enthusiastic about making an elegant dress for Rhino. Naruto sighed and just asked for a utilitarian dress and would ask for 3 dress like that later after the wave. The woman had a dress done in about 10 minutes that was both functional and looked good for Rhino. Naruto paid the 10 silvers and said that they would be back. The group made it to Erhard's shop and found him in a deep conversation with Jiraiya. I don't know if you confront him it will do any good. Only his daughters or the queen could rein him in. Ah, the group is here, not another girl, Erhard complained. Naruto chuckled and replied, what can I say? I'm A for saving those in need. We need to equip her from the bottom up and some new weapons and some new equipment for the girls. I also need a new armor outfit, but one that isn't constraining. Erhard took a thinking pose and asked, how flexible are you? Naruto bent back and kicked his leg straight up. He then demonstrated a kata that would show his flexibility. Naruto then asked, does that tell you what you want? Erhard nodded and replied, and the girls? Naruto replied, they are not quite as flexible as I am, but are working on it. Girls, please let him know your preferences. Raphtalia blushed and replied, I would prefer to have skirt, since I don't do those kata and mine are more fist and less leg movements. Erhard nodded. Millie replied, being a mage and following Master Naruto's kata, I would prefer shorts or pants that afford me protection. A plate would also be helpful. Erhard nodded. Sylvie blushed and said, I need both protection and flexibility. I am a blend of what Raphtalia and Millie. Erhard nodded. Rhino looked at Naruto who nodded and hesitantly said, I'm mostly a fighter who uses magic. A cuirass would work with a battle dress. She then blushed and turned to Naruto and exclaimed, I'm sorry Naruto-sama. Naruto edged his head and asked, why are you sorry? You need to be protected. The girls are higher level than you, so it is understandable that you get better protection. Rhino bowed and exclaimed, but it costs so much, Naruto-sama. Naruto waved her off and said, we also need 3 magic steel swords and another kunai kit. Erhard chuckled and said, you treat your girls right and do your best to keep them safe. The cuirass I have, but can custom make to fit her better, if you want. No extra cost. And you Master Jiraiya, the magic chain suit I asked for would be fine. The kunai set will be spread between the girls, Naruto, and I, Jiraiya replied. Erhard was counting on his fingers and said, that will be 557 silvers. Naruto pulled out 5 golds and 57 silvers. Rhino began to tear up and Sylvie hugged her. She whispered, you see. He does care and will make sure that you're taken care of. Rhino nodded and replied quietly, I see now. He isn't like that woman or the spear hero. Erhard explained, I'll have the custom stuff ready later today. We should fit her with a standby cuirass until you come back. I also need some supplies. Here is the list. I was hoping to make what I called barbarian armor, but it would be restrictive to your movements. I will edit some and make it so that it will be more to your style. Naruto chuckled and said, barbarian armor. Sounds awesome. We can call it that anyway. Since the king wants to make me a criminal then I will oblige him. He began to laugh and the others began to laugh with him at the king's folly. After Rhino was fitted with the temporary cuirass the team went outside the castle wall. They found a large group of balloons and Naruto began to give orders. The first run didn't go well, because the team wasn't used to having either Jiraiya or Rhino there. Rhino expected to be reprimanded, but Naruto said, "This is why I decided to go against a group of balloons. I wanted to find out where our teamwork was lacking. It is my fault as team leader for not compensating for a new person and reintegrating Erosenin. Now collect the pieces and we will do it again. This time I want Rhino on the center right with Raftalia on the right. I want Jiraiya on the center left with Sylvie on the left with Millie right behind me in the center. This will be Alpha formation. The Beta will be Millie, in the center with Rhino. Sylvie will be on point with Jiraiya on the left flank and Raftalia on the right and me in the back. Charlie formation will be me up front with Sylvie paired with me in the center. 5 meters to the right will be Jiraiya with Millie. While Raftalia and Rhino are 5 meters to the left, Naruto explained. Rhino held her head down and said, "Do you not trust me?" Naruto shook his head and replied, "No, we work in teams or groups of 2. I put experience with experience. The reason you're not with Jiraiya is that he doesn't have magic, but is very experienced, but not in our group. He does a lot of solo things before the wave. I want him with one of the members of the group who are with me all the time." Jiraiya chuckled and said, "It says a lot that he trusts you with Raftalia. She has no magic right now but will be learning over the week. Just like I will. So, you have magic and Raftalia doesn't, that is why you're paired with her." Naruto isn't picking favorites with Sylvie. Their styles mesh well together. Now let's get back to training. The group went through 5 more balloon groups before Naruto seemed happy. They then moved to larger monsters. They ran into a group of bears and quickly took care of them. Naruto praised the group. The group headed back to the town and sold off their goods. They got about 60 silver for their troubles. They then stopped by Erhard's and the cuirass looked incredible on Rhino. She broke down and cried at the sight of it. The fitting wasn't a problem and the group went to a tavern. They wore their new armor. Naruto now had a green and burnt orange outfit. It had plates of leather and steel over his vital locations, but not enough to interfere with his movements. It also gave him added protection. The next day Sylvie and Naruto paid the church a visit. He wanted to show her the hourglass. As he was leaving, Motoyasu showed up. "Is that Naruto? And who is this lovely girl? She can't be with you," he chided. Naruto raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why not? I prefer strawberry blondes to redheads now. Less hassle." "Shut up, you criminal!" Mine exclaimed. Motoyasu went to kiss Sylvie's hand and she pulled it away and said, "Not interested." He was surprised but decided to barb Naruto. He then said, "I would watch out for him, he might try something." Mine grinded her teeth and growled, "Damn Demi." Sylvie smirked and replied in a sultry voice, "It's not him to be worried about." Naruto chuckled and asked, "Shall we leave? It's getting a little stuffy about here." "Oh, hi Ren, Itsuki. You guys ready for the wave?" Itsuki waved and asked in a confused tone, "How are you doing, Naruto?" Naruto shrugged and replied, "Leveling in with my partner here. We are going to have protect everyone." Itsuki still seemed confused, but replied, "That's good." Ren scowled and said, "Don't get in my way." Naruto replied happily, "Okay, Sasuke-chan." Ren angrily asked, "What did you say?" Naruto turned and replied in a serious tone, "You act just like the traitor to my village. I was always in his way. So, I will try to stay out of your way, but remember to stay out of mine and we can be happy rivals." Ren scowled and said, "You're level 25 and I'm over 40, how can we be rivals?" Naruto waved as he was leaving and said, "Never underestimate someone, especially one you think is weaker than yourself." Sylvie giggled at the exchange and waited until they were outside. She then asked, "So do we get in their way, or not?" Naruto chuckled and replied, "We will see. If lives are in danger then, yes. If not, let them figure out how to work together. I see a group that doesn't know the idea of teamwork." The pair met the rest of the group in the forest near the town and they continued to train up until the day of the wave coming. Elsewhere, a dark figure slinked around the castle while the heroes were getting ready for the wave unnoticed by the king and his knights. In the last hour before the wave, Naruto and his party came together at Erhard's. Alright, we will start with Charlie formation. Civilians are the priority. Keep an eye on both your mana and your chakra. Do not stray from your partner. Call for help if you need it. We should try to stay close to each other. Jiraiya then said, make sure you have all the potions, salves, bandages, and equipment that you need. Naruto then looked at his party's status and saw Naruto, LVL 27, Raftalia, LVL 35, Sylvie, LVL 35, Millie, LVL 30, Jiraiya, LVL 32, Rhino, LVL 28. He then checked his shields. Small shield, orange, yellow, red balloon shields, leaf shield, fish shield, mush, blush mush, green mush shields, egg, blue egg, sky egg shields, small medicine, small poison shields, doctor shield, energy, potential energy shields, Yusa meat, Yusa leather shields, sharpening shield, pickaxe shield, rope shield, PQ shield, wood, rock shields, butterfly shield, pipe shield, iron, copper, silver, lead, light metal shields, slave trainer 3 shield, novice mixing, mortar, beaker, medical research shields, animal needle shield. It continued for a few more, but they were not very interesting. He switched to the light metal shield. He then nodded to himself and felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked to see Sylvie smile warmly at him. The rest of the group looked at him and smiled. He then exclaimed, let's do this. I bet the other heroes go for the main monster and we will have to save civilians first. Erosenin, we're keeping clones secret unless we really need them. Jiraiya nodded and replied, sounds good. We should also not use jutsu in front of guards or the other heroes. Rhino stood and she cleared her throat and said, Naruto. I may only speak for myself, but I think I speak for all of your party when I say. We are all behind you and know that you're behind us. I will be your sword through thick and thin. I will follow anywhere. Naruto smiled and blushed. The other girls nodded and replied, we agree. Naruto then said, then we figure out where the wave is and protect the innocents first and then deal with the boss. I'm sure that the other heroes will want to be first to take care of it and leave the people to the mercy of the wave. Not realizing what they are doing. So, the first priority is to secure any village and then go after the boss. If we have to, we will let them take care of the boss. Agreed. Everyone in the group nodded and exclaimed, right. Naruto looked at the timer and said, we have about a minute. Check your equipment. Potions and bandages. Rhino, Jiraiya will carry you if we need to travel to the location, and then we will take our formation. Rhino nodded and replied, yes sir. Naruto then said, 10 seconds. The group waited for the time to tick off. All of them heard a loud gong when the timer hit 0. They were then surrounded by a light and teleported. All of them looked around and Raftalia said, the heroes are headed to the heart of the wave, like you predicted. Naruto nodded and then said, we're near Loot Village. Let's go. Jiraiya picked up Rhino and the group as a whole jumped off towards the village. They made it there in very little time. Raftalia and Sylvie were actually able to cleave a zombie each in two just before it hit the ground. Jiraiya set Rhino down and the group looked at Naruto. He then said, Charlie formation for now. Head down the streets and help the villagers. Herd them into a group and then we will get them to safety. Naruto quickly ran with Sylvie behind him. He slid down in front of a zombie to block it from slashing down at a man who was sitting on the ground holding his arm up in defense. Naruto blocked the swing while Sylvie took the head of the zombie. Sylvie asked, are you, alright sir? If so, follow behind us and we will protect you. The man nodded and got up and followed the pair. They then came upon a woman and her daughter who were set upon by some large bees or wasps. Naruto exclaimed, shield prison. And a round barrier made of shields surrounded the pair. The bees bounced off the barrier and then charged Naruto and Sylvie. Naruto changed his shield to the animal needle shield, and added speed to his own charge. Sylvie stayed behind and picked off the strays that weren't impaled on the shield. The barrier disappeared and the woman and child looked up to see Naruto and Sylvie kill the last bee. Naruto then said, "Follow us and we will lead you all to a rally point to get you out of here." Now having 3 people following them, they made their way back to the gate and Naruto said, "Rhino and Raftalia, you two take the civilians to safety. Come back for more. We will continue to clear out the village." Naruto and Sylvie jumped up onto the top of a building and then saw a large zombie about to kill a villager. Naruto exclaimed, "Airstrike shield. Go, Sylvie." An ethereal shield appeared between the zombie and the man. The zombie lifted its axe and went for another attack, only for it to lose its head to Sylvie's sword. Naruto then said, "Sylvie, I'm going to protect them and you ferry them to the entrance." Sylvie nodded and replied, "Got it. Follow me, sir." The man nodded and followed the bunny girl. Naruto kept the animal needle shield and charged into a locust swarm. He decimated the swarm. He then saw a group of adventurers backed against a wall. He continued his charge and created a Rasengan in his right hand. The Rasengan hit the zombie that was about to attack the adventurer, but its head was demolished by the jutsu. Naruto said, "I'll get their attention, but I want you to do a fighting retreat to the entrance of the village. Most of the villagers are almost evacuated." The man Naruto had saved replied, "As you wish, shield hero. Guys, head back down the block." Naruto then said, "Hey deadheads. Catch me if you can." This seemed to get a lot of attention. Naruto was then masked and swarmed by the monsters. He smiled and made a Rasengan. He then enlarged it to be bigger than himself and spun around. It tore through the massing monsters. He did notice that he had lost some of his hit points, but that was minimal. He saw the last of the adventurers rounding the corner towards the entrance of the village. He then noticed Sylvie coming into view. She was cleaving monsters left and right as she progressed. Naruto smiled widely at this. He then jumped and landed behind her to block an axe from one of the large zombies. She flipped backward and took the head of the zombie with a deft swing of her sword. Naruto then did several hand signs and exclaims, "Fire release, great fireball technique." He breathes out a large fireball that hits a large group of monsters. Sylvie then exclaims, "As the source of my power, I order thee. First fire blast." A fireball hits another group of monsters from her fire magic. Naruto then exclaims, "Water release, water bullet technique." He aimed it at a group of monsters, but also a burning building. This had the effect of hurting the monsters and putting out the fire in the building. Elsewhere in the village, Jiraiya and Millie were running down the streets either using magic, in the case of Millie, or slicing down monsters, in the case of Jiraiya. The civilians saved were corralled and herded towards the entrance of the village. Jiraiya made sure to only use jutsu of fire and water on most of the monsters. He would use wind on the flying monsters though. The pair cleared about a quarter of the village. Raftalia and Rhino were able to clear a quarter of the village also. Naruto and Sylvie were in the final area trying to clear the village of monsters and were backing out when they noticed several flares. Naruto changed his shield to the light metal shield. They had cleared most of the monsters from the area, but not all. The flares were actually spells and appeared to be artillery-type spells that had an area effect. Naruto wrapped Sylvie in his cape and lifted his shield to the incoming spell. The area became a conflagration. Naruto used a long-lasting water bullet to extinguish the fires in the area. An arrogant voice said, "The shield hero. You're a tough one. Oh well, guess we got all the monsters in one shot." Naruto held Sylvie's arm and said, "If this is how you protect your populace, I would hate to see what will be left after the last wave. I'm guessing, nothing." The man looked angrily at Naruto and said, "You will watch your mouth, you criminal." Naruto asked, "Or what? You'll die like a valiant warrior to the monsters that came after your spell." The man growled and then said, "You might be hurt if we slip up." Naruto chuckled and pointed behind the knights. He then said, "You guys might want to get better situational awareness. I'll protect you this once. If you claim you did more than you did, then I'll prank you as you've never been pranked before." He disappeared. The leader of the knights asked, "Where is he?" He then heard a clang right behind him and saw an axe a foot from his head. "You didn't defend the people and never claim that you did in this wave. Now either help me take care of this wave or get out of my way," Naruto exclaimed. Sylvie was already running up the arm of the large zombie. She cleaved the head in half of the zombie. Naruto and Sylvie began to appear to dance with each other as they began to eliminate the enemies. The leader of the knights said, "Leave the shield hero. We'll help the other heroes." Another man who appeared to be a captain shook his head and said, "Knights, phalanx formation." Naruto chuckled and the leader and a few of his men shook their heads at the group that agreed to stay. He then said, "Leave them. Let's go where we're needed." Naruto and Sylvie continued to weave in and out of the monsters and backed up the knights. Naruto would occasionally use a water jutsu to put out a fire. Raphtalia and Rhino eventually joined them in keeping the village clear of monsters. About a half hour later the sky changed and the monsters stopped coming. Naruto then exclaimed, "Girls, we're going to clear the village and have the others work on healing those that are safe. We will also look for those who are trapped." The girls nodded and the group moved around the village. An hour later most of the knights had left and his team had assembled. The villagers had returned and Naruto had set up a medical station. Jiraiya acted like a solo adventurer, so as to not attract attention to himself from the knights. Raphtalia and Sylvie had collected the bodies of the monsters into a pile outside of the village. They also collected the weapons of the monsters too. Knight Commander said, "These will be confiscated by the crown." Naruto stood against the wall and said, "If you can prove that you collected them, then I have no problem with you doing that. I would have less problem with the village taking a percentage, but the crown. You guys did more damage than the monsters did. Now either get lost or I'll find a monster to feed you to. The spoils of this battle belong to the town and me." Knight Commander angrily replied, "I don't think you understand who you're dealing with." Naruto looked at the man and said, "Oh, I do. You're the one who thinks that he is in control. Remember I saved your life. Now get out of my sight, before I make you disappear and they don't find the body." Knight Commander growled and said, "The king also would like to invite you and the other heroes to a celebration for beating the wave." Naruto raised an eyebrow and replied, "Sure, but let Kingy know that if he pulls anything I'm going to not be pleased and he will not like the consequences." The Knight Commander gasped and asked, "Are you threatening the king?" Naruto shook his head and replied, "As the prankster king of Konoha, it is a promise. Remind him not to mess with me. I am a hero and was brought here against my will to help him out. He will give me some consideration. I did rescue a town in his kingdom and I didn't see him out here and you guys arrived really late." The commander turned and left while making a HMPH sound. Naruto was feeding his shield from the defeated monsters when he noticed an assemblage of the townsfolk. He looked up and the governor of the town said, "Thank you, shield hero. If it wasn't for you our town wouldn't have survived." Naruto scratched the back of his head and replied, "It's okay. My team and I were glad to do it. Part of the job thing." He blushed. The governor shook his head and said, "You went above and beyond. Thank you." Naruto bowed and said, "I would like to negotiate on the salvage of the weapons from the wave." The man looked surprised and asked, "What do you mean, Sir Hero?" "I was going to sell them and give you a percentage of the take to help with rebuilding," Naruto replied. The man smiled and said, "That is most gracious, Sir Hero. We would be happy with whatever you decide is fair." Naruto sighed and said, "Then I guess we can go 50-50 on the weapons and other parts that I have salvaged." Raphtalia and Sylvie finally came back with the mutilated corpse of the chimera. The governor bowed and said, "That is most gracious and we agree to your terms." The rest of the town bowed and began to file back into town. Raphtalia said, "They looked like they were really grateful." Naruto nodded and replied, "Yes they did. We need to get the best prices for this stuff we can, so that we can help this town rebuild. We also helped to make sure that as few as possible kids went through what you and Sylvie went through." Break. Naruto, the girls and Jiraiya were in the castle at the celebration party. Jiraiya kept his distance to keep an eye on the things happening on the court. Naruto was sitting on a windowsill going over some new information in his help menu. Sylvie brushed by Motoyasu, who reached to grab her, only to be intercepted by mine. Sylvie happily came up to Naruto and said, "This food is great." Naruto asked, "Really?" Sylvie nodded and took a fork and fed it to Naruto. She then asked, "See?" Naruto smiled and then frowned. He then asked, "What do you want, pretty boy?" Motoyasu threw down a glove and said, "I challenge you to a fight." Naruto chuckled and asked, "You litter to challenge me to fight? So, what is this really about? Sylvie is your slave, right?" Motoyasu asked. Naruto nodded and replied, "Yep. Just like the nobility, I have a slave or two. They help. I tray." Motoyasu interrupted, "We're heroes, we shouldn't do that. We come from worlds that don't have that." Naruto raised an eyebrow and asked, "Really? Are you sure that there is no slavery anywhere in your world? Slaves? Or other types of slaves, or are you just blind?" Ren said, "A hero having a slave. Will he stoop to no level of degradation?" Itsuki replied, "He does have a point. There is still slavery in our worlds, but it is limited." Ren sighed and agreed, "True, but it isn't the norm." Naruto explained, "In this world slavery is the norm. It is also in my world. It is looked down upon, but so are masters who are not good to their slaves. It doesn't matter. I challenge you for Sylvie's freedom." Motoyasu exclaimed. Naruto stood and asked, "So you're challenging me? Then you have something that you're willing to give up and put on the table as collateral for this bet? Or are you just going to challenge me to a fight without anything if I win? That would be forcing me into a fight with nothing for me to accept the challenge." Motoyasu gritted his teeth and said, "If you win, things stay the same." Naruto shook his head and said, "You see, that is what I mean. I'm the only one who has something to lose. You see, I can't kill you for making this challenge, since I need you to finish off these waves, but you would be taking someone special from me. You also haven't asked if she wants to be away from me. That is just as bad as forcing me to fight. Making me a kind of slave to you. Maybe she likes it how it is. There is a reason for the slave crest, but you wouldn't listen to reason. Also, you don't know who and what you're fighting." Motoyasu laughed and said, "You're just a shielder. You have no attack." Naruto laughed and replied, "So, since you feel you have an advantage, you're going to bully me into doing what you want me to do. Sounds like a real hero like you. In my world and more than likely in yours they call that a bully. Enough. You will accept the challenge, shield hero." Altcray exclaimed. Naruto turned to the king and glared at him. The king flinched at the glare. Naruto then said, "You stay out of this or you may not be a respected member of the community anymore. Also, there is no incentive for me to accept. If you are forcing me to do this, then you are declaring war upon me. And you do not want to do that." His voice became deep and his eyes changed to violet. "You will accept or I will take your party members away from you." "Draw swords," Altcray exclaimed. Naruto's eyes remained violet and he said, "Fine, but you will compensate me if I win or you will not like the consequences." Altcray smiled and said, "You will not threaten the king." Naruto then said, "Sure, I'll threaten you. I will tell your wife. I'm sure that she will want to know about this. She wears the pants in this family and you're just a concubine playing with power." The king flinched and said, "Very well, if you win. I will compensate you." The party was led to a coliseum-like building and Naruto put in a room with a bunch of weapons. Naruto sighed and looked at all the weapons. He heard, the fight between the shield hero and the spear hero will be a contest. The contest will continue until one is either pinned, gives up, or is unconscious. The contest will begin when the contestants enter the arena. Naruto smirked at the rules and chuckled. He knew what he had to do. The doors opened and he walked down a row of guards into the arena. He then heard, "This contest is official since it is being officiated by both the Pope and the King." Naruto scowled at the officials. Naruto looked around and saw Mine on the side of the arena. He then said, "She should move out of the line of fire or she could be hurt or killed. I will not take responsibility for your party member. I also don't want to fight against two combatants at once, but if I have two I can and I will destroy her. I hope she understands that I will make sure that a lot of this area is destroyed. I do no magic." Motoyasu looked surprised and said, "Mine, you should leave the field of battle." Naruto said, "Unless this is a battle between parties and then bring my party down." Motoyasu shook his head and said, "This is a battle between you and me." Naruto began to smile and it got wider and wider. He then said, "You fell into a trap. I'm not just a shielder, I'm a shinobi. You've already lost. I don't care what you think you can do. It won't be enough." Motoyasu shook his head and moved his hair out of his eyes, not really listening to Naruto. He then said, "Have you ever heard of the story of the spear and the shield?" Naruto changed his shield to the light metal shield and chuckled. The spear hero charged and jabbed at Naruto. Naruto sighed at the speed of the jabs. He blocked every one of them and then asked, "So, when the spear didn't penetrate the shield, what happened?" "I would guess that the spearman lost." Motoyasu jumped back and turned his spear. He then said, "I'll admit you've got some moves." Chaos Spear. The speed of the spear increased, but not enough to worry Naruto. Naruto shifted the shield to his left arm and blocked the spear. He grabbed the haft of the spear and kicked Motoyasu in the chin with his right leg. This stunned the man. Naruto then moved his leg to the right and then kicked Motoyasu across the face. This turned the man to the right. Naruto followed it up by jumping over the spear and kicking with his left leg to the face. He let the spear go and Motoyasu went sprawling. Naruto looked at Mine and did several hand signs. He then exclaimed, "Water release, water wall." He spat out water that quickly formed a wall around Naruto. Suddenly something hit the wall from the direction of Mine, but didn't disrupt the wall. The wall then fell and Naruto had finished another set of hand signs and exclaimed, "I warned you, bitch." Fire release. Great fireball technique. A huge fireball headed towards Mine. She dived away, as the wall exploded in fire. Naruto then turned to Motoyasu. Naruto then disappeared and appeared behind Motoyasu. He said, "Hey idiot. You've lost. First your teammate interfered and now you lose." Motoyasu turned only to have his feet swept out from under him. Naruto then knelt down upon the chest of Motoyasu. The man shook his head and said, "Hey, get off." Naruto shook his head and replied, "No. You're pinned." He then pointed to where Mine was getting up and said, "If you interfere again, I will end you." He then looked down at Motoyasu and said, "Give up or I will make sure that you are hurting for a week at least. Even after a healer works on you." A blue swirling ball appeared in his right hand. Naruto then explained, "This technique is called the Rasengan and it is an assassination technique. I could kill you with it or just hurt you a lot. Now give up or be hurt." Motoyasu tried to struggle but didn't understand that Naruto had affixed himself to the ground with chakra and would not be moved. He then used his left hand to do several hand signs and turned to Mine. His eyes purple. Mine flinched and pissed herself. She backed to the entranceway and hid in the hallway. Naruto then looked up at the king and then at the Pope. He then demanded, "Call this match or your hero is going to be hurt. He has lost." Naruto felt a buildup of power inside. He jumped off of Motoyasu and landed 10 meters away. Motoyasu exclaimed, "Lightning spear." He pointed the spear up and lightning came down and hit the spear. The man pointed the spear at Naruto and then lightning streaked at Naruto. Naruto dodged out of the way. Naruto then exclaimed, "Fire release. Great fireball technique." A fireball headed towards Motoyasu and hit the man, but not directly on. Naruto walked over and looked down at the man. He then said, "You lost before this match started. You underestimated me. I may be only level 29, while you're level 43, but I have actual fighting experience. You don't. Give up and let the healers heal you." You have yet to even touch me and I have beaten you at every turn. Open your eyes. Motoyasu was breathing hard and said, I'll never surrender to you. Naruto sighed and said, You do realize that you fought a trained assassin, don't you? Naruto knelt down on Motoyasu's chest and the man began to cough. He said, I won't let Sylvie-chan be your slave. Naruto whispered to Motoyasu, You do realize that if she is released from her slave seal that someone else will try to capture her and re-enslave her. The slave crest is only there for her safety. She is free to do as she wishes. I have no real control over her. I have set it at minimum settings. She can't attack me or other party members. That is all. Hell, I even fixed her left hand that was broken by her noble half-brother that sold her into slavery. So, get off your high horse and get some reality. Surrender. Naruto then raised his voice, Don't do it, bitch. The audience noticed mine coming out of the hallway. Naruto then asked loudly, How long do I need to pin him for? Alt-Cray scowled and said, I guess we can call it a win. A voice announced, Winner by pinning Shield Hero. The murmurs in the crowd were disappointing. Naruto got up and offered Motoyasu a hand, which was smacked away by the spear. Naruto scowled and began to walk away. He turned to see Motoyasu stab him in the chest with his spear. Sylvie screamed, Naruto, no. Naruto's eyes turned red and he grabbed the spear. Blood was coming out of his mouth and he coughed. Naruto then said, Wrong move, asshole. The green gem on the shield became red. Naruto pulled the spear out of his chest and said, Sore loser. You don't know what you've done. Naruto watched as he pulled Motoyasu's spear out of his chest. A text appeared in his view. Curse series requirements met. Naruto stumbled backward as he knelt while coughing. Gritting his teeth, Jiraiya appeared in front of Motoyasu and looked at the man and said, You've just asked to be killed by me. His teacher. A Rasengan appeared in his hand and Motoyasu jumped back. Jiraiya was quicker and hit him in the chest with the jutsu. Motoyasu hit the wall. A round impression appeared around where he hit. Jiraiya turned to his student and picked him up. He turned the king, who had a smirk on his face, and said, This isn't over. We will be back. Sylvie disappeared, even though she was restrained, as did Raphtalia, Millie, and Rhino. Jiraiya pulled out a potion and gave it to Naruto. The pair disappeared in front of the crowd. No one noticed the smile that was on the Pope's face. Also, the restraints were left in a nice, neat pile on the chair that Sylvie had been sitting on. There was also a note, to the guards. To those that grope me. Savor having hands, for you shall reap what you have sown. A dark shadow in the castle library gritted its teeth and its eyes glowed red. It then said, Damn him, damn them all. The group arrived just outside of the inn. Naruto's bleeding had slowed. Jiraiya and the girls moved quickly to get Naruto up and into the bed. Once inside the room, the girls quickly pulled off his armor and threw it aside. They watched in fascination as the wound knitted itself closed. Sylvie noticed the red gem on the shield and said, That doesn't look right. Naruto replied through gritted teeth, Yes, the seal on the Kyuubi is loosened and now I have access to a new shield. Called the Rage Shield. It takes all my mental strength to keep it in line. I'm sorry. Sylvie quickly shucked off her armor and was in her undergarments. She laid down beside Naruto and hugged him gently, and then her eyes changed to slits. She began to grit her teeth. She then said, I will take some of this for you, because I love you, Naruto. He tried to smile and said, Thanks, Sylvie-chan. She shifted on top of him and then bent down and kissed him passionately. Jiraiya sighed and said, As good as this would be in one of my books. I need to do something. The pair became enveloped in an orange chakra cloak. He pulled out 2 small pieces of paper and placed one on each of their foreheads. They seemed to stop being in pain and the cloaks dissipated. He then looked at the shield, which the gem had turned back to green. He sighed and handed the papers to Raphtalia and said, If they get frisky like that again. I mean turn orange, use those. Raphtalia nodded and put the pieces of paper in pouch on her belt. She replied, yes sir. Are they okay? Jiraiya replied, yes, it was just Kyuubi chakra getting out and affecting them. I think the shield had something to do with this. I'm going to talk to the king about this and inform him about his little campaign against our little Naruto and that it has to stop or I'm going to stop him. The girls nodded as the man left the room. Motoyasu was sitting on a bench as a healer was casting a healing spell on him. He could not believe that Naruto had brought him down to 1/3 of his hit points with those attacks. Not to mention that the old guy who claimed to be his sensei hit him and took him down to single-digit hit points. These people weren't even his level and they hit harder than he did. His hit only did 1/4 of Naruto's hit points, but it was a critical hit. He just couldn't lose. He was the hero. He should be the one to win and the one to free the maiden in distress. Itsuki and Ren had assured him that Mine had interfered with a wind magic spell, and what were those fire and water magic spells that Naruto used? They didn't seem to use the rules of this world. He had learned a couple from some crystal balls, but they were not as powerful. What was he also talking about him being an assassin? He wondered. Mine asked, are you okay, Motoyasu-sama? Motoyasu coughed and replied, yeah, just wondering how Naruto got so strong. Mine replied angrily under her breath, he's the devil of the shield. Motoyasu asked, what did you say Mine? She called my student, the devil of the shield. Care to explain or do you wish to die now for interfering in a duel? Naruto's sensei explained, as he just appeared as if out of thin air. Mine bit her thumbnail and shook her head. Jiraiya pulled out a kunai and spun it into a reverse grip. You will leave my daughter alone, Altcray exclaimed. I am Jiraiya, sage of Mount Myoboku, student of the 3rd Hokage, a member of the Sannin, sensei of the 4th Hokage, and of Naruto Uzumaki. Now as of promised, I'm back. Tell me why your daughter thought it was a wise idea to interfere in a duel. Then we'll get to why she lied about the rape charge against my student. I also swear if she tries to lie, I will end her before your archers can draw a breath, Jiraiya explained. Altcray was aghast at the gall of this man. He then exclaimed, you think that you can come into my kingdom and threaten me and my daughter? Mine giggled and smiled. She then said, that's right Papa. Jiraiya smiled and replied, yes because you are just a concubine. While she loves you both. You are pushing this nation into war with other nations and if I get angry, I might pull more from my world into this fight, and then your kingdom is a lost cause. Your wife will be more than angry with you. I gather that she is the type of woman that would kill you both to set an example and then kill herself out of guilt. Look, you have a. Jiraiya sidestepped and grabbed the spear that would have impaled him. He then used a single hand and tossed Motoyasu into the 2nd floor of the stands. He looked up at the boy and said, you're too young to fight me. Naruto has a better chance to beat me than you. Heck, from what I've seen his team would wipe the floor of all the other so-called heroes. He then turned back to Altcray and said angrily, you do realize that your anger is misplaced. Putting it on Naruto is wrong and it will get you killed. If not by me then either by Siltbelt or Shieldfrieden at the very least. You are this close to war. He held his finger and thumb almost touching. Altcray turned his head and said, you don't understand. Jiraiya said, inform me and don't take your kingdom down and get your family sold into slavery. I hear that this one is close to being sold to Fabry as a slave wife. A fate worse than death I hear. So, talk to me. Or you can die here by my hand and just end it. Altcray sighed, as he watched Mine run off to deal with Motoyasu. He began, it all started. Naruto wakes up in the familiar confines of the area of the Kyuubi's seal, but there is another person there, Sylvie. She is lying there unconscious. Naruto glared at the fox and asked, what do you want? The fox chuckled and replied, I didn't bring you here. That damnable shield of yours did. While it put a harder lock on the seal, it did also loosen the seal in a way. Naruto looked down and said, the curse series. The fox laughed and replied, yes, the curse series. Naruto got down, rolled Sylvie onto her back and began to check her out. He asked, "Why is she here?" The fox replied, "She was injected with a little of my chakra and thus is affected by the shield and me, but I'm not the one you have to worry about." Naruto wore a look of surprise and heard his own voice behind him say, "We finally meet." Naruto turned to see a perfect copy of himself, but the pupils of the eyes were red and the skyla was black. He asked, "Who are you?" Yummy Naruto replied, "Your darker self. That woman helped my power in ways I couldn't imagine and that idiot spear guy, don't get me started. I'll fight you," Naruto declared. Yummy replied with a smile, "Now is not the time and if you let down your guard I will take over. Bye, brother." Naruto began to fade away. Sylvie sat up when he was gone and looked at Yummy and then at the cage. "So, you're his darker half and you're the demon fox." Naruto woke up with Sylvie laying on his chest and an ache in his chest. Raftalia asked, "You're awake. How are you feeling?" "Like I had a spear pushed into my chest," he replied. Raftalia giggled and replied, "You did. Jiraiya told us to keep an eye on the two of you until he returns. You both went a little wild." Naruto looked a little dejected and murmured, "Kyuubi." Millie shook her head and replied, "Not only that, but your shield changed." Naruto sighed and replied, "Curse series." Rhino asked, "Do you know anything about it?" Naruto brought up the shield tree and couldn't find it. He then looked into the help menu. No luck there either. He guessed it was locked unless he either used the Kyuubi chakra or was so angry that it was unlocked. He replied, "I can't tell you much. I can't find anything about it. It looks like it is locked and will not be accessible unless I use the Kyuubi chakra or get angry enough to lose control." Raftalia replied, "Jiraiya told us to make sure that that doesn't happen. Since it will affect Sylvie too. He left these seals with me to help keep you both in line." She held up 2 seals. Naruto looked at the seals and explained, "Demon chakra suppression seals." "Good call. I'm guessing that Sylvie being in this state of undress was her doing." Raftalia raised an eyebrow and said, "You explained more to us. You don't seem to remember. The shield is called the Rage Shield." Naruto sighed and said, "Thanks for the information, Raftalia." He looked up the information and then it became available, but seemed locked. He then said, "It looks like it is locked. I need to reach level 35. Sylvie woke with a start and sat up. She looked down at Naruto and then at the position she was in. She blushed red and it extended down to her chest. She asked tentatively, "Did I take something I shouldn't have?" Raftalia giggled and replied, "No, you, rabbit. You were stopped from being like a rabbit." Millie and Rhino giggled at this. Sylvie glared at Raftalia and said, "Not funny Tanuki." Naruto turned red and said, "Please stop shifting Sylvie-chan." Sylvie gasped and exclaimed, "Sorry, Naruto-koi." She then laid down on his chest and closed her eyes. Raftalia looked on in surprise as Sylvie fell quickly asleep. She said, "That was quick." Millie replied, "It has been an exciting day for her and Naruto-kun." Raftalia nodded as she began to undress and got into a nightgown. She laid down beside Naruto on his left side. Millie and Rhino followed suit. Millie pulled the blanket over Naruto and the pair of girls. Jiraiya opened the door just then and looked around the room. He sighed and saw Naruto asleep with Sylvie and Raftalia. He then explained, "I will be back in the morning to explain what will happen tomorrow afternoon." Rhino nodded and replied, "Yes sir." She closed the door behind him and locked the door and window. A shadowy figure met with another shadowy figure. The feminine one said, "I dare say that you are moving against the king rather quickly." "He deserves it," the masculine-voiced one replied. "Would you like some help?" "I dare say," the female asked. The male eyes glowed purple and he replied, "Sure, but keep quiet. We need to make sure that this isn't found out for a few days." "As you wish. I dare say," the female replied. The male shook his head and the pair headed deeper into the castle. Naruto woke up to having each hand grabbing something soft but firm. He squeezed and it produced 2 separate moans and 1 swishing tail. He recognized the tail as Raftalia's. He immediately released the soft mounds and opened his eyes. He looked down to see his hands had grasped and cheek of each of the girls. While he was sure that Sylvie wouldn't mind, he wasn't sure about Raftalia. Raftalia's eyes fluttered open and she smiled. She looked into his worried eyes. She asked, "What's wrong?" He replied, "I'm sorry. I squeezed without thinking." She reached back and found his hand and found that her gown had rode up during the night. She smiled and kissed him on the cheek. She said, "I'm sure that it was innocent. We can talk about going farther later. I figure that you will have several wives and I more than likely will be one of them. I do like you and am attracted to you, but not at the same level as Sylvie." Naruto sighed in relief and said, "I was afraid that you were going to hit me." Raftalia put her finger on his nose and said, "I knew the possibilities of laying here in bed with you. Groping would be a possibility. It makes me happy that you told me that you did it and I'm sort of sad that you don't want to do it again." Naruto looked at the girl on his arm and said, "I don't want you to think that I'm a pervert." Raftalia giggled and Naruto thought it was cute. She said, "Some perversion is fine. Just don't take it to the level of Master Jiraiya." She grabbed his hand and pushed it against her bottom. He gently squeezed and she moaned lightly. He asked, "Like that?" She nodded and kissed him lightly on the lips. "I really like Naruto-kun. He is gentle and will be a good husband," she said and kissed him again. She then rolled off the bed and said, "Too much will cause my hormones to run wild and we don't want that. Our rabbit just needs to be in bed with you for that to happen." Sylvie smiled and replied, "Not always. I can enjoy just being in his embrace." There was a knock on the door and then the lock was unlocked. The door opened and Jiraiya entered the room. He then said, "Good, you're up." He looked at Naruto and asked, "Feeling better?" Naruto nodded. Jiraiya continued, "Good. You will get your reward this afternoon and more will be revealed. So, get ready and assemble the whole team. Except for Rhino." Rhino asked, "Why not me?" Jiraiya replied, "I have a job for you. You and my clone are going to cash in the supplies from the wave while the guards are busy at the castle." He then looked hard at Naruto and said, "You had a clone in the castle, didn't you?" Naruto scratched the back of his head and replied, "Yeah. How did you know?" "I helped him, his helper, and their prize out of the city last night." "Good job," Jiraiya replied happily. "I would also go back to both the slave traders today and work your way to the village that the wave hit. Then spend a few days there. Then make a B line for the border and if you can make it to Shieldfrieden then do it. If not, then Siltvelt. Rhino, you are going with them. I want you to get at least 1 or 2 more hourglasses on that shield." Naruto nodded. He then said, "I should also be able to find more types of monsters for my shields." Jiraiya nodded and explained, "You will also be able to level up and then you can have class upgrades. I would also look into having a secondary job, like a merchant. It will bring in some extra money." Naruto looked at him in confusion and asked, "Why? We are making enough money right now." Jiraiya replied, "I'm afraid that soon you will not have the support of this kingdom and no, it isn't because of the king. The church is looking like it might cause a coup. I was able to open the eyes of the king to several things last night that he was overlooking. The other possibility is an actual war with another nation. If he doesn't change his ways. What are you going to do, Master Jiraiya?" Millie asked. Jiraiya replied, "The usual. Get information." Naruto laughed and added, "He will also peek at any naked women that he can." Jiraiya blushed and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Spoilsport." The room erupted in laughter. He left the room and the group got dressed. Jiraiya was waiting for them outside the room and they proceeded to breakfast. It was a quiet affair. Jiraiya and Rhino went into an alley. Jiraiya left the alley, while Rhino and a clone left the alley several minutes later. The rest of the group left for the castle and arrived in the throne room. Altcray sat on his throne looking tired, as did several of his assistants. Motoyasu was glaring at Naruto and Jiraiya. Both seemed to not even notice. The girls just stood behind Naruto and Jiraiya. Itsuki and Ren stood in between Motoyasu and Naruto, with their teams behind them. Naruto could feel mine glaring a hole in the back of his head, but he didn't care. The king then began, thanks to the heroes for protecting us from the wave. We are here to give them their monthly stipend. I award the spear hero 3,500 silver pieces. I award the sword hero 3,400. I award the bow hero 3,300. I award the shield hero 4,900. This includes the agreed upon compensation for forcing him into the duel. I would also like to make a couple of apologies to the shield hero. First, it has been proven that he didn't attempt to rape the adventurer mine, who by the way is my daughter. I would also like to apologize for not agreeing with him that it is true that slavery is a custom of this country. It is mostly carried out upon demi-humans, but also on humans. So, he is within his right to own slaves and should not be looked down upon for owning them. Lastly, I would also like to apologize for carrying my hatred for certain people who worship the shield hero and shifting that hatred upon Sir Uzumaki. Motoyasu angrily exclaimed, "You don't have to apologize. He did try to rape mine, I mean Malty." Jiraiya asked, "Did she sleep with you that night?" Motoyasu looked at him in confusion and replied, "Yes. What does that have to do with anything?" Jiraiya replied, "A woman that has just been through the traumatic event of rape wouldn't want to have right afterward with the first man available. She would have to have immense trust in you. That takes years to establish, and even then, it would be rare. She would be repulsed by the idea for days or weeks." Motoyasu exclaimed, "You lie." Jiraiya shook his head, "I have consoled many who have had to deal with this. Even in wartime, is the farthest from their minds. Comfort and understanding are what they want." Motoyasu continued to yell, "You're from a backwards world." Jiraiya looked at the boy and Motoyasu flinched. He then sternly explained, "My world is more advanced than this one but less advanced than yours. So, what do you have to say about that?" Motoyasu scowled but said nothing. Mine then exclaimed, "He did rape me." She then folded at the glare of the pair of seasoned shinobi. Naruto then explained, "I'm still a virgin." The atmosphere was becoming oppressive. Alt-Cray exclaimed, "Enough. This matter is decided. Naruto Uzumaki is innocent of rape. I will hear no more of this subject." He then glared at Malty and said, "Continue this and you push this country into war." Everyone is dismissed. The room quickly cleared. Alt-Cray sighed and cradled his head in his hand. He sighed and said, "This is going to be hard until the next wave." His advisor replied, "Yes sir, it looks that way." Outside of the castle, Motoyasu and his party was waiting for Naruto and his party. Naruto looked at the spear hero and asked, "What do you want, sore loser?" Itsuki and Ren had held back and were watching this meeting. Motoyasu angrily exclaimed, "You cheated in the duel. I should have won. I was higher level. Everyone knows that the one with the higher level wins." Naruto chuckled and asked, "So, in the game rock, paper, scissors, who wins?" "The one with the higher level." Motoyasu shook his head and replied, "What does that have to do with it?" Naruto asked, "You are a spearman, I am a shielder and a shinobi, dual class. Shield cancels spear. Shinobi beats spear. I beat you in speed, strength, and power. I also have you beat in combat experience. You've got how many years of life and death, combat experience? I have over 3. You've maybe got a month of light combat experience." Motoyasu shook his head and said, "Even so, you should have fought fair and square." Naruto edged his head to the side and asked, "Fair and square? What do you mean by that?" "Just let you win. That isn't a fight or a duel. That is just letting you win and not what a duel is. A duel is a test of our martial prowess, of which you are lacking. I'm guessing that you've taken the easy way to get experience. I work for what I have. I've worked for what I have," Motoyasu exclaimed. Naruto chuckled and said, "I bet you've had it easy with women and in life." Motoyasu blushed and then shook his head. He then exclaimed, "You know nothing about me." Naruto shrugged and nodded. He admitted, "You're right and you know even less about me." I'll give some clues. I've killed doing my job as a shinobi. Your life in your world probably meant that you didn't need to kill other humans to survive. Motoyasu scowled and said, "You're evil. You killed people." Jiraiya shook his head and replied, "If he didn't, he would be dead. In our world, it is part of life to kill or be killed. While it is monsters right now, it may change to be people later on. Don't forget that." Motoyasu laughed and said, "You don't know anything, old man." Naruto touched his chest and then said, "You were ready to kill me. Even though you lost to me. Do you understand that losing me will hurt our chances to stop these waves?" Motoyasu shook his head and exclaimed, "You know nothing." Naruto shook his head and said as he walked past the spear hero, "I used to hate reading, but you can learn a lot from books. Go read a few books and learn about the history of this country and planet." Motoyasu got angry and attempted to thrust his spear in Naruto's back. Only for Naruto to turn and catch the tip in between his index and middle fingers. He pulled the spear past himself and punched the man in the face. This sent him back a good 20 yards. Naruto waved to Itsuki and Ren with a smile on his face. Naruto and his party headed into the center of town and Itsuki and Ren lost sight of the group. They looked at the crumpled form of Motoyasu. Ren then said, "I think that Naruto does have a point. We haven't attempted to do much reading or learn about this world." Itsuki shook his head and walked off while saying, "We will do what we need to do. Motoyasu is just an idiot and should just steer clear of Naruto." Ren looked at the group of girls fawning over Motoyasu and shook his head. He and his group also left the area. Naruto and his group entered Baluka's tent. The man looked as gleeful as ever and exclaimed, "Good to see you, good shield hero. To what do I owe this visit?" Naruto replied, "I was looking for another slave." Baluka smiled and said, "Well, thanks to you my supply is low. What levels are you looking for?" Naruto replied, "Around mid-30s. Baluka laughed and smiled widely. He then said, "I'm sorry, but my stock in that range is non-existent at the moment." Naruto sighed and asked, "What do you have?" Baluka smiled and replied, "I do have several in the high 50s and the one before at level 80. Naruto shook his head and said, "I want them to work their way up with us." He then noticed a box of eggs. He then pointed at the box and asked, "What is that?" Baluka laughed and replied, "That, my boy, is an egg lottery. For 100 silver you can try your luck at getting a monster. If you win the jackpot you can get a dragon and it is worth 20 gold. Naruto chuckled and said, "What the heck?" Raftalia frowned at Naruto and said, "You shouldn't have bought 2 eggs. It was a waste of money." Jiraiya shook his head and replied, "You don't know this boy. His luck is either going to be double dragon good or he will get 2 duds. I am betting on double dragons. I once saw him do a lottery and win the grand prize with a single ticket." Naruto chuckled and said, "We need to go visit your girlfriend, Erosenin. We then visit the apothecary and then Erhard. After that, we head to loot. Rhino, you can ride on my back." Rhino had just tried to sneak up on Naruto and replied with a sigh, "Okay. How do you do that?" Naruto chuckled and replied, "Sensor, good hearing, and watching the other's eyes." The others giggled at the antics of Naruto and Rhino. The group headed to the witch's shop. The witch greeted them as they entered, "Greetings, shield hero and party." "Oh, hello Jiraiya." Jiraiya smiled and said, "Hello, Ezra. We're here to buy some magic books." Ezra smiled and replied, "I'm impressed that you've read and learned all those spells from the grimoires." Naruto replied, "As you said. If we work hard, we can learn any spell if we apply ourselves." Ezra smiles wide and raises her fist. She then exclaims, "You bet, young man." She turns to Jiraiya and asks, "Are we on for tonight?" Jiraiya replies, "Yes, but I do have to leave after tonight and work on getting information for Naruto." Ezra blushes and says, "Look around and any books you want I will sell you at a discount." Naruto smiled and replied, "That isn't required. Girls, we need level 2 fire, lightning, healing, illusion, water, light and darkness grimoires. The girls replied in unison, right, and moved around the shop. Jiraiya and Naruto made small talk with Ezra while the girls searched for books. After about 45 minutes Ezra said, "That will be 3,800 silver." Naruto looked at her and asked, "Are you sure?" "I was sure it would be more than 5,000. Ezra nodded and replied, "I'm sure. I know that you'll be back and I'm going to get some more books for you especially. I noticed you got some books on our neighbors. That is a good idea. I wish you luck in their lands." Naruto handed over a bag of silver and replied, "Here's your silver, and thanks for all the help. We will be back around the next wave and hopefully with some more help." She smiled warmly and said, "Of that, I have no doubt. Good luck young Naruto and take care of those girls." Naruto smiled and waved. He and the group left the shop and he replied, "I will." The next stop was the apothecary. He picked up some new equipment and better tools for making potions. The apothecary was sad to see Naruto and his group leave Melmormark, but was happy that they would return for the next wave more prepared. The final stop was at Erhard's shop. The group entered and Erhard asked, "So what can I do for you?" Naruto replied, "I would like to have you set on retainer for upgrading our weapons and armor when we return. We need some new weapons and some upgrades right now. We also need some repairs." Erhard looks them over and replies, "Give me a couple hours and I should be done with the repairs. You can take the new stuff out of my stock and we will negotiate when all is said and done." Naruto nodded and said, "Sounds good." Everyone in civilian clothes. It took about 10 minutes for everyone to change out of their armor and set it on the counter. The group left the shop and they took the eggs to a tavern for lunch.